And I think the same is now true for Harry Kane, our final topic. It sounds like he's signing a contract to 2028 and then with an option to 2029. Um, he did his rounds with the Bundesliga media channels, spoke very positively about his experience in Germany, made it quite clear that he feels very comfortable living there. Went as far as saying that people in England should open their eyes and look beyond the Premier League sometimes and realize that there's other experiences out there. I think he's really enjoying his time in Munich, and he's now putting his actions where his words are. From the sounds of it, I was thinking about that. If he does sign a new longer term deal with Bayern Munich, he could enter legend status there as a player. Because what we did 5 to 6 years, he would have been at the club. There's not many strikers that have lasted that long. Lewandowski, of course, but other than that, strikers usually don't last long term at Bayern Munich. And Harry Kane has done so much beyond just what he's done on the field in terms of how he's integrated himself. I think way better than a lot of people anticipated when he first make the move to Munich, because he was a player who's only ever been at Tottenham, right? He didn't see anything else, and then made the move abroad. And I think a surprising move for many to Germany. It's not a place that many thought he would end up going. But I am still marveling about the way he's fit in. I think it's really impressive. And with Thomas Müller gone, he has almost become the guy he does every post game. He speaks to the media. He's always, speaks honest and openly to the media. He's making an effort to learn the language, which is really hard. You've experienced that yourself. And so I am actually, I'm not shocked that now, looking at the situation now, that he is about to sign a new contract. But looking back to when he signed initially, I am very positively surprised how well he integrated himself at the club.
Yeah, I mean, he's become the poster boy of the Bundesliga. It's no surprise that they're obviously putting him up on all the media channels, because having Harry Kane talk is something that people pay attention to. And he's a world-class star, and it's something that the Bundesliga does have, but not always. It's not always the kind of final destination for top talent, outside of Bayern, I suppose. So yeah, it's great that you have him. I'm really intrigued by his contract renewal, because obviously he's not a young player. He's no spring chicken, and it kind of confirms what we've been saying for a while now, that, a lot of reporting in England and Spain saying, oh, well, he's desperate to come back and play in the Premier League because he wants to beat Alan Shearer's, all-time record. And whenever I've been kind of confronted with that story, I've always kind of wondered, well, who exactly do they expect him to go play for? Because, Tottenham aren't going to be coughing up a considerable transfer fee for a 33-year-old or 34-year-old striker. Manchester United aren't going to do it. So what's he going to play for, some mid-level club in the Premier League in the hope they can score enough goals to try and catch some goal-scoring record? And interestingly enough, I was just checking there, and Harry Kane has currently scored 81 Bundesliga goals in 7 to 8 games for Bayern. Now, to get into the top 10 for Bayern in total, all-time top goal scorers in the league, Claudio Pizarro's number 10 with 125 goals. So he's already only like 45 goals off that. He's currently averaging about 30 goals a season. So if he finishes this season with, say, another 10 or 15, and then he has another 2 seasons, that's 50 more goals. So he could potentially, when he comes to the end of that contract, be sitting on about 130, 135, about 150, I think, if I'm not mistaken, league goals, which would put him firmly, within the kind of top 10. So probably sitting about 6th or something for Bayern all-time top goal scorers in the Bundesliga. I don't think he's going to ever catch Robert Lewandowski or Gerd Muller, who, just had like insane numbers like 300 and 500, things like that. But he could, end up finishing like in the top 10 all-time goal scorers for Bayern. And in a roundabout way, yeah, okay, maybe not to the same extent of becoming the top goal scorer of all time in the Premier League. It's not, but he'll end up etching his name in the history books in Germany. In much the same way a lot of people expect him to go back to England to do exactly that. But, I can completely understand why maybe he's made a decision. He's like, well, I'm just going to stay here, score as many goals as I can, and make myself a club legend at Bayern. Why would I jeopardize all that? And if he can continue scoring goals, and he's obviously a player who doesn't hugely rely on pace or acceleration or any of these things, so you'd think he'd be a very useful player into his mid-50s, mid-30s for Bayern. Then yeah, it's a no-brainer, I suppose.
Well, also, and here's the thing. You're looking at the top goal scorers in history. Forget the Premier League, forget the Bundesliga. Champions League, Harry Kane has currently 45 goals. He sits 17th all time, and that includes the old European Cups, so going all the way to 1956. Another 2 seasons could probably put him in the 65 goal range, right? That's currently 6th with Kylian Mbappe, who sits behind Raúl. But that could put him in the same category as a Raúl, ahead of Thomas Müller. Doesn't quite catch Robert Lewandowski, who was the Bayern Munich top Champions League goal scorer. But it will put him firmly in first place among English players. And
yeah,
that is, I think, the true record that he's probably having in his mind.
I think maybe something that's kind of played a part in him maybe hoping to stay put at Bayern, and maybe giving him kind of hope that he can extend his career at Bayern, because it's not typical that you see players painted in mid-30s at a top club like Bayern Munich. But a good example is, of course, Thomas Müller. They're quite similar players in the extent that Müller never really relied on pace. He never really relied on speed. He relied on his ability to read the game and exploit space and become a very useful kind of cog in that attacking lineup. And, Harry Kane's obviously an incredible goal scorer. He's a top goal scorer for them. And he is the kind of focal point of that attack. But we're seeing him kind of develop more and more into this kind of all-purpose striker, in the sense that he pulls back, he sets up plays, he takes free kicks, he can even take corners if called upon. He obviously did it for England kind of notoriously. So, we've often talked about the fact, and he has at many points this season played as a number 10 rather than as a striker, so even if by the time 2028 comes around, he's obviously not a starter anymore because age has simply kind of robbed him of that. You can still see him playing a very predominant role at that age, just as Thomas Müller did, because like Müller, he's a very smart player and he can kind of come on in impact games and set up plays very quickly. Obviously, typically speaking, strikers into the mid-30s don't really work out. But because Kane's never relied on his pace, it's not something that he has to really worry about. I guess the only thing is injuries, but curiously, and I think this is something that's often underreported when we talk about Kane go back to the Premier League, those niggling injuries that he used to always get at Tottenham have more or less dried up since he moved to Bayern. His injuries are more or less non-existent in the Bundesliga, and that's because the Bundesliga is not as physical as the Premier League, in the sense that players don't fly into you, they don't leave the studs in, they don't make kind of nasty tackles, and the ref just says play on. That's the crucial difference between the two leagues, I think. And for Harry Kane, that's the difference between missing maybe 2 or 3 games a season and missing 5 or 10 games a season. Which, to an extent, also probably says to him, well, if I was playing in the Premier League, my knees and my ankles would be ground to dust right now, but I could probably spend more time playing in Germany.
And the 2 weeks off that he had just had.
Yeah, and an extended Christmas break.
Yeah, that's a huge factor. It's a huge factor.
It's a great job perk for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's the German mentality, right? That's the Central European mentality. Is like work-life balance. That's what Harry Kane is seeking in his mid-30s. Good for him. All right, man. Speaking of work-life balance, let's shut down this podcast for today, so you can go to bed. And I can wrap my day up.